I thought I saved her life. I thought I made the right call. But the moment she walked back into school with that quiet smile and an army of whispers behind her, I knew I'd been rewritten, not as a hero, but as her monster. And no one wanted to hear the real story. I was 17 when Melanie grabbed my hand after chemistry class and asked me to promise her something I didn't understand at first. We'd been friends since the fourth grade, the kind of easy closeness that survived bad middle school haircuts and awkward adolescence. I'd always carried something quiet for her, a crush I never really acted on, afraid to ruin what we already had. That afternoon, the hall outside Mr. Turner's room smelled like old floor wax and burnt popcorn from the vending area. We were the last two out of class, and she waited by the lockers, her books clutched tight against her chest. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, barely louder than a whisper, as she looked down and said, "I need you to promise not to watch tomorrow during third period." At first, I thought she meant something harmless, like a prank or maybe a performance in drama class she didn't want me to laugh at. I even smiled, almost joked, but the look on her face stopped me cold. Her eyes didn't meet mine. Her fingers wrapped around mine like they were holding on for balance or maybe something deeper than that. And then she told me. She told me everything. Melanie had been planning for months, keeping a secret that weighed more than I could ever imagine. She said no one listened. Not the teachers who dismissed her anxiety as teen drama. Not her parents who only cared when her grades dipped below an A-. She said it didn't matter how loud she screamed on the inside because everyone only saw what they wanted to see. She'd taken her mom's pistol from the fireproof box in the bedroom closet. She knew the exact time Mr. Browning would be in the teacher's lounge and when Principal Hewitt would be in his office, distracted with morning calls. She was going to live stream the moment from the back stairwell during third period, when half the school would be logged into the Wi-Fi and every person who'd ignored her would be forced to watch. But not me, she said. Not me. You're the only one who ever saw me, Melanie whispered, still holding my hand. Don't let them make you watch me disappear. I remember the hallway being way too quiet in that moment, like the whole building was holding its breath while I stood there, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Her words hit like a blow to the chest, knocking every ounce of air out of my lungs. I couldn't speak for a few seconds. I couldn't even think. Melanie, you can't do this, I finally said, my throat dry and tight. Please, just talk to someone. Let me help. It's the only way, she said. And then she let go of my hand and walked away like we'd just shared a normal goodbye. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, refreshing her Instagram over and over again, staring at pictures where her smiles always seemed just a little too forced. I remembered the way she'd started wearing long sleeves all the time, even when it was nearly 90 degrees outside. I remembered how she stopped bringing lunch and just said she wasn't hungry. I remembered the poems she'd started sharing, pretty, sad, and getting darker every week. Had I missed the signs? Had we all? I thought about Mr. Turner, who was strict but always tried to stay fair, even when he was tired and overworked. I thought about the students who would be in the stairwell between classes. I imagined the shock, the fear, the guilt they'd carry forever because we'd all been part of the background noise of her suffering. I must have typed and deleted a dozen messages to her that night, each one more desperate than the last. I didn't send any of them. What if I made things worse? What if she blocked me? What if she did it anyway, and all I had left were unread texts? But then I pictured her empty desk in chemistry. Her name never called during roll. A chair left untouched because no one would know what to do with it. Her parents sitting in the front row of a church instead of a graduation ceremony. A video feed that no one could ever unsee, echoing through our school long after the doors had reopened. I picked up the phone just before 5 in the morning, my hands shaking as I dialed the youth crisis line I'd found online. I didn't know what to say, so I just started talking. They connected me with local authorities, and soon I was explaining everything again, more details than I ever thought I'd be forced to give. Her full name, her home address, the time she'd mentioned, the location, her words. The officer I spoke to kept his voice steady, but his tone sharpened with every sentence I shared. "You're saving her life," he said at the end. But it didn't feel like saving. It felt like betraying. At 7:25 that morning, just as she was placing her phone on a windowsill in her bedroom, the police arrived. They found the note folded neatly on the desk. The weapon was unloaded, but there was no mistaking her intent. By 8:15, every student was in their seats. Teachers pretended nothing unusual was happening, but the air felt heavier, like everyone was waiting for something. The news broke by lunch. Principal Hewitt made an announcement about a mental health intervention and urged students to speak to the new guidance counselor. No names were used, but everyone knew. Everyone knew. When Melanie came back 2 months later, nothing was the same. Not for her, and definitely not for me. Melanie came back to school at the end of October, 2 months after everything fell apart. She looked different, but not in any obvious way. Still wearing that same navy hoodie, still walking with her head down and her earbuds in. But the moment she stepped into the hallway, the energy around her shifted like a storm front moving in. Whispers followed her everywhere, soft at first, like wind against a screen door. People said she'd been in some kind of facility out near Biloxi, one of those quiet places with fences that looked more like summer camp than anything else. Some students called her brave. Others looked at her like she might explode again. Nobody said a word about what really happened because nobody had to. Everyone knew. The truth was baked into every glance, every hushed conversation in the locker-lined corridors. I waited for her to talk to me. I thought maybe she'd find a way to say something, to thank me, to hate me, even just to acknowledge me. But she didn't. Not once. Not even a glance in my direction. She moved through the halls with a new set of people around her. Kids who weren't there before the incident. Kids who didn't know me and didn't care to. Her new friends treated me like a ghost, and Melanie never corrected them. 2 weeks after she returned, I found a folded piece of paper in my locker. No envelope. No name. Just my name in handwriting I knew better than my own. My stomach twisted as I opened it. The note was short, but every word felt like it had teeth. You took my choice away. Now I'm going to take everything from you, piece by piece. When I'm done, maybe then you'll understand what it feels like to lose control. This isn't over. There was no signature, but it didn't need one. I stared at the note for a long time, wondering if it was a threat or a warning, or maybe both. My hands were cold when I folded it back up and stuffed it into my backpack. I didn't show it to anyone. I didn't know what they'd say. I wasn't even sure what I wanted them to say. That afternoon, I tried to catch Melanie between classes. I followed her to the water fountain outside the auditorium and stood there like an idiot, hoping she'd say something. She didn't even slow down. As she passed me, her phone was already in her hand, recording. I saw the red circle glowing as she whispered just loud enough for me to hear. If you say a single word, I'll scream. Who do you think they'll believe? The girl who tried to end her life or the guy who called the cops? I stood there frozen, my mouth half open, and she just walked away like it was the most normal thing in the world. From that moment on, everything started to shift. Slowly at first, like a tide pulling at my feet. Someone posted a photo on Instagram from the homecoming bonfire. In the background, I was looking in Melanie's direction. The caption didn't name me, but it didn't have to. It said, "Some people can't take a hint." Then came the videos. The first one showed me walking behind her in the hallway. That's all it showed, just me walking maybe 15 feet back, heading in the same direction. But the footage was cropped tight, shaky like someone filmed it with one hand while hiding the phone with the other. The comments underneath were brutal. Why is he always near her? This is why girls don't speak up. Didn't he already mess her up once? I tried to laugh it off at first, telling myself nobody really believed it. But more videos followed. Different angles. Different days. Each one made to look like I was following her, cornering her, watching her. Always just enough to plant the idea that maybe I wasn't safe. I went to Mr. Turner and showed him the posts, my voice cracking more than once. He listened, but I could tell he was out of his depth. He said it wasn't clear who was posting the videos, and that unless someone broke a specific rule, there wasn't much the school could do. He told me to lay low and try to ignore it. So that's what I did. I stopped raising my hand in class. I stopped walking the usual routes between periods. I left for lunch 5 minutes early and came back 5 minutes late. But it didn't help. Everywhere I turned, someone was watching. I could feel the stares in the back of my skull like needles. My friends began fading too. At first, they just stopped texting back as quickly. Then they stopped altogether. One afternoon, I caught up with Ava, someone I'd known since we were kids, and asked if I'd done something wrong. She looked genuinely sorry. She said, "You've been following her around," she said quietly. "I don't know what to think, Nate. I want to believe you, but she showed me some of the videos." I wanted to scream. I wanted to explain how the videos were edited, how they cut out the part where Melanie was the one waiting, how none of it made sense. But Ava already looked uncomfortable just being near me, like proximity alone could taint her. That night, I told my sister Dina what was happening. She tried to stay strong for me, but I could see it rattling her. She asked why Melanie would do this after everything I did to help her. I told her I didn't think Melanie wanted help in the first place. She wanted to be seen, and I made the mistake of saving her when all she wanted was silence. My parents didn't find out until someone sent an anonymous email to my mom's workplace. It included screenshots of the videos and a message warning them about their dangerous son. My mom cried for the first time in years. My dad just stared out the window and said we needed to fix this before it ruined my college chances. I was still holding out hope that things would die down. But then I started noticing unfamiliar cars parked across from our house at night. Once, I saw a flash from a camera when I was getting out of my car. I couldn't prove it was her or someone she knew, but I didn't need to. I knew. I could feel it. She was building a case, piece by piece. I tried reporting one of the Instagram accounts, hoping maybe the platform would take it down. Instead, I got a message saying my account had been restricted for violating community guidelines. That's when I realized this wasn't just high school drama anymore. This was war, and I had no weapons. The worst part came the following Friday. Someone posted a flyer in the school library stapled to the corkboard above the event's calendar. It showed my yearbook photo and Melanie's side by side. The caption read, "Not every predator gets caught. Some just walk the halls like nothing ever happened." By the time I saw it, 3 more copies had already appeared. In the gym, the cafeteria, and the back door of the auditorium. No one saw who posted them. No one admitted to taking them down. I didn't sleep that weekend. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hallway, the looks, the whispers. I kept telling myself I was the good guy, that I had saved her, that I didn't deserve this. But by Sunday night, I wasn't sure anymore. Doubt isn't loud. It's quiet, corrosive. It eats you slowly until even your own memories feel suspicious. Monday morning, I found another note in my locker. Same handwriting. No greeting. The world doesn't care who's right. They care who bleeds louder. Try not to miss third period. I've planned something new. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it wasn't good. By the time the next week started, I'd stopped hoping things would return to normal. My teachers had started glancing at me differently, like they weren't sure whether to say my name out loud during attendance or just wait for me to fade out of the room altogether. Every time I walked into class, I felt the silence tighten around me like a noose. The whispers had stopped, not because people believed me, but because they'd already decided I was guilty. I skipped third period that Monday, just like the note told me not to. I didn't care if it made me look bad. I sat in the empty band room, the only space where no one would look for me. When the bell rang, I waited an extra 10 minutes before heading to the cafeteria. That's when I got the text from a number I didn't recognize. "You missed the show. Don't worry, there's always next time." Attached was a photo, me sitting in the band room, head down, unaware the picture had been taken. My stomach dropped. Someone had been there. Someone had watched me through the window. I deleted the image, but the panic stayed. My heart beat in my ears so hard I could barely hear myself think. I tried to talk to Mr. Turner again, but this time he barely looked up from his stack of tests. He said the school had received complaints and that it might be best if I stayed away from certain people, for their comfort, for their safety. He said that word like it had weight, like I was something dangerous left loose in the halls. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened every account, every app, every video that had been shared about me. The edits were precise, perfectly timed to erase context and leave only implication. I wasn't just being framed. I was being dismantled one post at a time. Someone even created a burner blog filled with fake quotes from me, stories that sounded just plausible enough to feel real. The worst part? People believed it. Classmates I'd known since kindergarten were sharing these things without a second thought. Even people I barely spoke to had suddenly become experts in my so-called behavior. Every lie became a new truth. Every post became a piece of evidence. I didn't know where to turn until I remembered Eli, a senior I'd once helped with chemistry tutoring after school. He was quiet, kept to himself, but everyone knew he was sharp when it came to tech. I reached out and asked if he could help me figure out where the videos were coming from. He replied within an hour and told me to meet him after school behind the math building. Eli didn't waste time with small talk. He pulled out his laptop and showed me a diagram, IP addresses, upload timestamps, metadata from social media posts. He explained it all like he'd been expecting this. Most of the videos came from devices registered to a specific house in town. A house I knew well, Melanie's. But it wasn't just her. "See this?" Eli said, pointing to a string of usernames. "They're coordinating. Not bots, not random. Real students. Some from school. Some older. Some even out of state." He showed me a private group chat he'd managed to access, a network built around the idea of protecting Melanie from people like me. Only I wasn't a threat. I was just the villain she created to fit her version of the story. One name stood out, Ricky. I recognized him from Melanie's new group, the loud one who always wore a varsity jacket and liked to play the savior. He was the one pushing the worst of it. Eli had proof that Ricky uploaded half the footage and had even edited it using video software installed on the school's media lab computers. I didn't know what to feel. Relief that I wasn't imagining it. Rage that it had gone this far. I thanked Eli and walked home in a daze. My feet moved, but my brain stayed frozen in that moment when everything finally made sense. 2 days later, Melanie showed up at the school's campus safety assembly. She wasn't on the roster, but there she was, sitting in the middle of the audience, surrounded by her new circle. She wore a soft pink sweater, her hair in a loose braid, and her face full of concern. When she raised her hand to speak during the Q&A, people leaned in like she was royalty. "I just want to say," she began, her voice trembling perfectly on cue, "that sometimes it's not about proving someone's dangerous. It's about how they make you feel." The room exploded in applause. I just sat there in the back, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. She had learned how to say the right words, how to bend truth into sympathy, how to control the narrative until it wrapped around her like armor. After the assembly, she found me near the vending machines. She walked up slowly, casually, like we were still friends. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she leaned close to my ear. "I can make this stop. All you have to do is admit what you did. Say you saved me because you wanted something in return. Say you violated me with your pity. Just say it." I pulled away, heart pounding. "You're sick," I said, voice shaking. "You need help." Her smile never reached her eyes. "I already got help. You should too." I recorded the whole thing, my phone hidden in my jacket pocket. The audio was grainy, but her words were there. I brought it to Principal Hewitt the next morning, thinking it would finally be enough. It wasn't. They said the audio wasn't verifiable. They said it could have been altered. They said I might be retaliating against someone recovering from trauma. Eli was the only one who didn't back away. He said we needed more. Something undeniable. That's when I remembered the school cameras, the ones that caught everything from above the lockers and outside the stairwells. One of the videos that showed me supposedly following Melanie had been filmed in a hallway with full camera coverage. If we could get the original footage, we could prove how it was edited, what was cut, and who really approached whom. Problem was, students couldn't access those tapes. But teachers could. I took a risk and emailed Mr. Turner. I told him everything, every note, every video, every moment since Melanie returned. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe silence, maybe worse. But the next morning, he left a sticky note on my desk. It said, "Meet me in the staff lot after final bell." When I got there, he handed me a flash drive and told me to use it carefully. "I'm not saying I believe everything," he said, "but I've seen enough to know something's off." Eli and I spent the entire weekend analyzing the footage. The real video showed Melanie waiting for me, phone already recording. It showed her smile before she turned it off. It showed her staging the entire encounter. With the flash drive in hand and the original footage saved in 3 separate places, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, like I could finally breathe without bracing for a punch. Eli was already working on syncing the timestamps, matching the real hallway footage against the edited clips spread across the internet. We didn't just have the truth now. We had evidence so clean it couldn't be ignored or twisted. That Monday morning, I walked into school with my head up for the first time in weeks. I knew better than to get comfortable. I wasn't safe yet, but I had a weapon, and that made me dangerous in a way Melanie hadn't planned for. I kept my distance, said nothing, and waited. Melanie, of course, was already 5 steps ahead. She didn't show up to school that day, and for a few hours, the air felt lighter. But then the first wave hit, an anonymous email blast sent to teachers, students, and even some parents. It accused me of manufacturing evidence to harass a recovering student, of creating fake videos to cover my tracks. I knew it was Melanie or someone working with her, but she didn't have to put her name on it. The timing was perfect, just enough to sow doubt before I could say a single word. That night, someone slashed the tires on my dad's car in the driveway. I didn't see who did it, but there was a note under the windshield. "Even villains need a wake-up call. Sleep tight, Nate." My parents finally snapped. My mom called the school, then the police, but nothing came from it. There were no cameras on our street and no witnesses. My dad asked me if I'd done something I wasn't telling them. That question broke something in me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there and watched the last bit of faith drain from his eyes. Eli and I pushed forward anyway. He helped me draft a formal report. We attached everything: the footage, screenshots from the group chat, the edited video breakdowns, and a statement from Sarah, one of Melanie's old friends. Sarah had been quiet during all of this, but after seeing what Melanie was doing, she agreed to speak up. Her message was short but powerful. She said Melanie had told her it was time to teach Nate a lesson he'd never forget. We submitted the report to Principal Hewitt and copied the school board. I expected silence. What I didn't expect was a response the next morning. An emergency meeting with the administration and a request that I bring all digital copies in person. When I walked into that meeting room, every adult looked like they'd just stepped out of a courtroom. Tired, nervous, covering their backs. I handed over the drive. They asked questions. I answered calmly, clearly, like someone who'd memorized the truth and carried it for far too long. I told them everything, from the first warning in the hallway to the staged encounters, from the threatening messages to the group behind it all. The room went quiet when I showed them the unedited footage. The moment Melanie clearly waited for me with her phone ready, then approached me first. One of the board members let out a soft breath and rubbed his forehead like he was already imagining the liability paperwork. They didn't say much when I left, but something had shifted. I could feel it in the air. 2 days later, Melanie came back to school like nothing had changed. But I knew the storm was coming. She didn't look at me in the hallway. She didn't speak during class. But her eyes were always scanning, like she was waiting for the trap she set to collapse around her. It finally did. That Friday during lunch, a message was sent to every student email account from the administration. It announced an official investigation into a pattern of harassment and falsified materials related to social media activity. It didn't name anyone, but everyone knew. Melanie didn't show up to school the next week. But Ricky did, and he wasn't quiet about it. He cornered me in the back hallway near the gym, just before last period. He didn't raise his voice or touch me. He just looked at me with this dead stare and said, "You think any of this makes you safe? You ruined her. You'll never fix that." I didn't respond. I just walked away. But the message landed. That night, Sarah called me in a panic. She'd heard from someone in Melanie's circle that something big was coming. They were calling it the final piece. She didn't know what it was, but the timing scared her. College decision letters were going out in 2 weeks. I was set to attend Auburn with a scholarship. My name had been cleared just enough to move forward. Whatever they were planning, it had to be soon. I kept my phone on me at all times. I triple-checked my email. I told my teachers I might need to step out unexpectedly, and most nodded like they understood. Some of them had started to see through the cracks in Melanie's performance. A few even apologized privately, but words couldn't erase the damage. Then the final piece came. It was a live stream. Melanie went live on a brand new account one afternoon after school. Eli texted me the link. At first, I didn't want to watch, but curiosity won. She sat in her bedroom, soft music playing in the background, wearing a gray sweater and no makeup. She looked younger, quieter, more real than I'd ever seen her on camera. She told a story, our story, but not the truth. Her version. She said I had pressured her into confiding in me, that I used her trauma for attention, that I recorded our conversation without her consent, edited her words, and built a lie around saving her so I could play the hero. She cried at the end. Actual tears, maybe rehearsed, maybe not. And then she said the one thing that stuck in my throat. "I'm going away again. Somewhere safe. But I just wanted people to know what really happened before I left. I don't expect anything. I just want peace." That was it. The video ended. The comments were filled with people calling her brave, saying they always knew I was hiding something, telling her they believed her, that I had fooled them all. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next day. I just kept waiting for the next post, the next lie, the next round of whispers. But they never came. Instead, I got a message from the dean at Auburn. They'd seen the video. They wanted to speak. A few hours later, I received a notice that my scholarship was under review pending further clarification. She hadn't needed to prove anything. She just needed to speak first. I almost gave up right there. All of it, school, college, trying to stay ahead of her lies. It felt like no matter what I did, Melanie would always be 2 steps ahead, rewriting the truth before I could even open my mouth. Then something unexpected happened. Mr. Turner called me at home. His voice was tense, but direct. He told me the school had concluded its investigation. They'd reviewed the footage, Sarah's testimony, Eli's evidence, and even IT logs from the school's internet provider. What they found was clear and, in his words, deeply troubling. Melanie had not only edited videos, but had coerced students into faking stories, staging photos, and sending anonymous tips. She'd created an entire mythology around her victimhood and built me into her monster. The school reported it to the local authorities. Her family withdrew her from school the next day. They claimed she was leaving voluntarily, but I knew better. The performance had ended. Her final scene had played. 2 months passed without a single word from Melanie. No new posts, No rumors, no unexplained photos. The silence felt wrong. Not peaceful, not like closure, but like the quiet right before something terrible decides to breathe again. I kept waiting for her to show up in the shadows of some digital corner I hadn't locked down. But nothing came, and that absence rattled me more than her presence ever did. College acceptance letters arrived in thick envelopes that felt heavier than they should have. My scholarship at Auburn was reinstated with an apologetic email from the admissions office, blaming external influences for the temporary delay. My parents bought a cake. Dina made a playlist. I smiled for photos and stood beside a banner that said, "You did it," in shiny gold letters, pretending like it hadn't cost me something I couldn't name. Summer moved slowly, like the world was trying to remember how to be normal again. I kept in touch with Eli and Sarah. Mr. Turner left the school and sent me a note thanking me for standing up, though I think he still wonders whether he did enough. People at school stopped looking at me like I was carrying something contagious, but they didn't exactly reach out either. No apologies. No explanations. Just the way people tend to erase their guilt by forgetting they had any to begin with. Then one morning in late July, a small padded envelope arrived on our porch. No return address. Just my name written in bold, precise letters. I opened it cautiously, half expecting it to be a prank, maybe even something worse. Inside was a letter, 2 pages, handwritten, and a black USB drive taped to the bottom corner. I didn't open the file right away. I read the letter first. Her handwriting hadn't changed. Neither had the way she wrote, like her words were meant to be heard, not read. It wasn't an apology. She didn't say sorry. She never mentioned the investigation or the school's findings. She barely even acknowledged what she'd done to me. Instead, it was written like a monologue from a play, carefully constructed, rehearsed, each sentence performing something she needed to say without ever naming it outright. "You were right," she wrote. "You were the only one who ever really saw me. But you didn't save me. You interrupted the story before I got to the ending I wanted." She talked about the program she was now part of, some intensive recovery facility in Utah where they didn't let her use the internet, where every day started with a silent circle and ended with accountability logs. She said she wasn't sure if she'd ever feel real again, but that she'd finally started to understand the difference between pain and power. The last paragraph stayed with me long after I finished reading. "You made a choice for me," she wrote, "and I made choices for you. Now we both get to live with the results. But if you're reading this, you survived. That means you passed." She didn't sign her name. I almost threw the USB drive away. Almost. But my hands moved on their own. I plugged it into an old laptop, one I hadn't used since sophomore year. It took a minute to load. A single folder appeared on the screen titled Final Chapter. Inside were dozens of video files, some rough takes, some rehearsed monologues, some diary-style recordings. Each one dated, labeled with things like Draft 3, Intervention Logic, or Rehearsal B, Narrative Tilt. I sat back in my chair, sick to my stomach as I realized what I was watching. Melanie had been documenting everything from the start. Not just her pain, but her plan, her intention. She recorded herself scripting emotional appeals, practicing how to cry on cue, testing different lines for maximum impact. In one clip, she even listed out potential reactions and how to manipulate them. If he stays quiet, he becomes complicit. If he fights back, he looks aggressive. Either way, I control the direction. In another video, she stood in front of a mirror holding her phone like a stage director. "This isn't about revenge," she said. "It's about forcing someone to feel what you feel when no one hears you scream." I watched every file, every second. I don't know why I didn't stop. Maybe I needed proof that I hadn't imagined the monster behind the curtain. Maybe I wanted closure. But when the final video played, I understood that she never intended to send these to anyone. They weren't evidence. They were confessions meant only for herself. In the last video, she sat on a bench outside the facility, hair pulled back, sun in her eyes. No tears, no tricks, just a girl speaking into a camera like it was the last person on earth who might listen. "I wasn't supposed to be the villain," she said. "I was supposed to be the lesson." But somewhere along the way, I realized people don't care about lessons. They care about spectacle. So I gave them one. She paused, took a breath, then looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, then I trusted you more than I hated you. That's all I have left." And then the screen went black. I sat in my room for hours afterward, the folder still open, her voice echoing in the back of my mind like a warning I didn't understand the first time around. I thought about deleting the files, pretending I never saw them. I thought about sending them to the school board, or the police, or Auburn. But in the end, I just copied them to a locked drive and buried the original in a drawer beneath old textbooks and forgotten notebooks. Some nights, I still check her old accounts, even though they've been inactive for months. Part of me keeps expecting her to return with a new name, a new plan, a new version of the truth. But so far, nothing. The damage she caused didn't disappear with her silence. My name still floats in internet corners I'll never find. I still feel my pulse spike when I see someone holding up a phone near me. I still avoid stairwells and public restrooms, and I never walk the same path twice between classes. Not because I'm afraid of being hurt, but because I learned what it means to be rewritten by someone else's pain. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't made that call. If I'd stayed quiet like she asked. If I'd looked away instead of trying to help. Would she really have gone through with it? Would she still be here? Would I? But the truth is, it doesn't matter anymore. I made the call. I saved a life. And in doing that, I lost parts of mine that I'll probably never get back. But I'm still here. And she was right about one thing. I passed.